right, welcome everybody. Super excited to be here. This is our very first Disco Creator Sessions. And the intention of these sessions is really every Thursday, we want to bring the pioneers of the future of learning, incredible creators, thought leaders, and people who are just excited about transforming how people learn together to our awesome disco community. And for those of you who are new to our community, we are where creators build live learning experiences, everything from workshops to cohort-based courses to micro schools. Our aim is to give creators a platform that makes it super easy to build and scale their learning empire. We're super early. In fact, we're still in closed beta. So join our waitlist as we are very slowly onboarding amazing creators to help build disco with us. And I honestly couldn't think of a better creator to kick the session off with. Our guest today is Graham Hill. And Graham Hill is a true pioneer. He is a creative genius. Fast Company considers him one of the top 100 most creative people in business, and it's very clear to me why that is. I have had a geek crush on Graham ever since he was the founder of Tree Hugger. That's how long I've watched him from afar. But he's one of these people who understands what it means to be early in new transformative experiences. Tree Hugger was an incredible blogging network. He built it with such purpose and passion, and I loved reading it. He's also the founder of LifeEdited. He has incredible TED Talks on how we can all live better with less and be more happy. And what I'm so excited about is his latest venture called the Carbonauts. And what the Carbonauts is an incredible cohort-based course to slash your carbon footprint. Graham, welcome to our very first creator sessions.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me, I should say.
Both, all good. Delighted to have you here. And yeah, I'm just such a huge fan of yours and sort of the way you have, manifested your purpose in so many creative ways, and specifically this one. Maybe to get started, I just have to say, Graham has been incredibly kind around giving us his time. And we have 25 minutes with Graham right now. And we get to actually see Graham this evening on Clubhouse. So this part of our interaction with Graham today, we are going to end sharp at 9:25 Pacific time, so Graham can go and teach his purpose and passion somewhere. So I will make sure we do that. And then please join us on Clubhouse later today at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific, where you get to bring all of your questions and comments for Graham. So with that being said, so good to have you here. Tell us your why. I mean, why did you decide that Carbonauts should exist in the world?
Essentially, so I've been working on environmental stuff for a couple of decades, and I've done a lot of awareness building, really, with Tree Hugger and LifeEdited. And one of the things the environmental movement has done very well over the last 3 decades, really, is build awareness. So awareness is really, really high. Unfortunately, climate doesn't care about awareness, doesn't care about our feelings, it doesn't care about what we think, it cares about what we do. It cares about whether we're putting carbon into the atmosphere or sequestering it. And so what I wanted to focus on with this project is really helping people move from awareness to action, to actually doing things. And so the Carbonauts started out as more of creating a set of guides that people would use to lower their footprints. And then at some point, I just decided that it really needed to be a course and that it needed to be live. I just felt intuitively that that was the way forward. And so, the why is that we have, humanity's biggest problem, biggest challenge is climate change. Mm-hmm. And we really need to take action. And so I'm trying to build a movement of everyday people that are lowering their footprints so that we can create new social norms and build a movement that ends up hitting a terrific tipping point where our society mobilizes to get this done. The silver lining of COVID is that we've seen we can spend trillions of dollars and change our behaviors. And so that's what I'm working on.
I love it. I mean, I think you said something so profound and so important, right? Which is awareness, is not enough, right? Like what you're really in the business of, or what your purpose is changing behavior, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
learning something so people do something different.
Yeah.
And maybe just for the sake of this community, what does the course consist of? Like, how did you decide, what it should consist of to make it a really great learning experience?
Great question. So one of the big challenges in the environmental movement and people's general understanding is that the most public, if you ask them about green, they talk about recycling. And while recycling is likely something we should do in most cases, it's just really, really low on the list. So if you're worried about climate change, you want to think about how you can have the most impact possible with your time, money, efforts. And so we focus on the big five. Those are the 5 most impactful things that most people can do to lower their footprint. And so those are renewable energy, driving electric, plant-rich diet, reducing food waste, composting, flying, reducing and optimizing, and offsets. And so we lead people through the why and then the specific how to get them to take action. We do 5 classes, we call them capsules. 1 hour each for 5 weeks. So we get it done within the month, 30-day course. And our entire objective is to help people take action. And so we're very proud that we so far already are getting people to cut their footprints by 20, 30, 40% in that time. So it's very powerful, and I think also change their identity somewhat and start to really build these social norms. So that's the core of the course.
I love that. And so let's kind of like break it down a little bit. This community is a community of creators who are all trying to think about how do they take their purpose, and their teaching and make it effective. And, any lessons that you can give in terms of the curriculum design. One of the things I noticed is that every week you have, a project, like something that people have to do. Maybe you can talk a bit more about how you think about really driving engagement when you're designing curriculum.
Well, I'm actually new to this, but Meg O'Neill, who works with me, and I did a lot of reading on behavior change, and so we've probably learned a number of things. I think the big one is just make it as easy as possible for people, like really nail the steps so that there are no questions, because the reality is people have really busy lives. And so if you bump up against a problem or something that you don't understand, then you may just end up going and doing something else. And so I think the big one is just trying to really put yourself in the user's shoes and go through the actions to understand what barriers there are. And really, in terms of barriers, that's probably a big one. Also, just addressing those up front, really understanding what barriers people come up against, so that we can preemptively answer those questions. And so those are probably some of the big ones. I guess probably also just having some social proof, showing that others have done this before. And trying to, I think the sharing, and that's one really, really big, important part about these live classes is the sharing. And so getting other people to talk about their challenges, to talk about their successes, that I think has a tremendous impact, and also just sort of a verbal commitments. So getting them to say, like Candace, what are you thinking in terms of offsets? Are you none, some, all? Like where are you? Getting people to sort of verbalize in a shared community, I think, is also very powerful. So there's almost a religious cult kind of aspect to it.
I hear you. I mean, in the research we've done, that's most probably one of the most important aspects, which is just accountability of a peer group, right? Like, I'm not just watching this on some screen and then turning to another channel. It's like, as
Yes.
you said, I now have to live up to the fact that Graham's going to put me on the spot and ask if I did the thing,
Yeah.
I said I was going to do last week, and
Yeah.
that seems to work really well. Do you have a sense of size of cohort that's worked? Have you experimented with how large a group works best for you in designing these live learning experiences?
So, I mean, I think our big realization, what I was just discussing, is just the power of sharing. People really, that is really important to people. The community, the feeling that other people are watching, the being able to share it. So it's a real balance. We've had everything from like 15 to just over 20. I feel like from a financial perspective and then a manageability, that sort of 15 to 20 is probably a good number. But it depends what you're doing. I mean, we're trying to fit X amount of information into 5 hours of classes, and it's very important to us that we start on time and we end on time. We want to really respect people's time. But we want to have enough sharing as part of it. And so we're feeling like for our particular course that we're ending up at 15 or 20 is pretty good. And it's tricky. Like we have everyone introduce themselves. So say that's 20 people. If the average is a minute and a half, then you just burned half an hour on the intros. And so it's a very delicate, letting people share, but also like, if someone starts to go on and on, how do you deal with that? And so it's a real balancing act, but we've done it enough times that we're getting pretty good at it, and we understand what the averages are. And yeah,
Sure.
so to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think 15 or 20 is feeling for us, but I think it would really depend on what
I think that's super helpful. And one of the things that you just brought up, which I think is interesting, is this idea of feedback. We found that feedback and feedback loops make these, that's what's so interesting about cohort-based courses, is that you do get to change every single time you run a new cohort, something. Any insights on sort of how you collect feedback and what kind of feedback you've gotten from learners about the experience that you've acted on?
Yeah, absolutely. Feedback's of critical importance. And I think, I don't think it's live or pre-recorded. I think it's both. And I think we will definitely do pre-recorded. And I think some people can actually get pre-recorded done. I mean, statistically, it's, this way more than anyone, but I think it's like less than 5% actually get the course done. But some people do get it done. And so we want to provide. So I think actually the way to get to good pre-recorded is to do a ton of live and improve and improve and improve. So we try to be diligent about the comment, we have an administrator that sort of keeps notes of things. So any comments during, but then we actually run a speed survey at the end of every class, which is basically, net, what's it called? NPS, net
promoter score.
Yeah, so we basically do that and then have like one open-ended question where they can give us, and so we try to get feedback every single time. And then at the end, we have a big survey, and we have sort of a prize for every 50 people that fill it out, kind of thing, or a bunch of prizes.
Yeah.
So we really try to hear from people that way.
Yeah.
What are the comments? Oh God, so many over time. I mean, everyone wants it to be perfectly suited to themselves, and can't, we do our best. Trying to think what the good feedback would be. I'll have to punt on that one.
Yeah, while you think about that, that's totally fine. Two more, interesting areas I want to go to. One is we're like in the really early innings of all of this, right? Like the pandemic happened, all of a sudden Zoom becomes a household name. The technology behind all of this. Maybe you can talk a little bit to what are some of the pain points that you've been experiencing around technology, and sort of where do you hope technology can really go and help around designing live learning experiences?
Yeah, big pain point. It's really tricky. Luckily, lots of people are working on it. Luckily, I mean, silver lining of COVID, really, people are working on it. So we have tried all sorts of things from using the, I guess, PowerPoint. We do Keynote, but basically presenting over slides using Zoom. And then we ended up, I think, from you guys finding this app called MMHMM. Which we quite like in general, but it's early days as well. Like we takes up a lot of processing power, so it's a real challenge. And you know what you're trying to do is connect in a world where people are doing often a lot of these calls, and so you're trying to keep things lively so people are not bored and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for the presenter also. Just how do you,
Sure.
you know, you're like looking at a camera, but people's faces are elsewhere, and so the technology has a long way to go. I would say a long way to go. It's hard to, but you got to keep it as vibrant as possible. I think
For
that's
sure.
partly why, like, we try to break things up, not have me blabbing for too long, and then. So you could do like a quiz or just get some shares, ask some questions, and sort of get them moving and thinking. I think that's part of the key. Where would I like it to go? I think the big one is I'd like to be able to have this screen, the camera, be able to look at people's faces and have the camera there instead of the camera at like a separate place. That's one of the biggest ones of all.
Definitely. Well, I've heard that a bunch of times. It's we're just early. And so at Disco, you know, we're hoping to help creators solve so many of these and just even bring the right apps and technologies to doing that for sure. So we don't have that much more time. So I want to go pretty fast.
Sure.
Marketing. You clearly are somebody who's very, very good at awareness, and you know, you've kind of built platforms for awareness with Tree Hugger and your TED Talks, etc. How do you get the word out as a course creator? What have you done that's really working for you around, you know, building community and the top of the funnel for Carbonauts? Like, how do you get people to know about you? How much is referral? How do you use social?
I mean, frankly, we are early in that. I think I can do a decent job of marketing, but I'm sort of maybe old school and really simple. I've been mostly focused on quality of the product. I think if you can develop just a terrific product, and then in a way the rest works itself out. And so, so we haven't really done any press yet, but I'm sort of waiting, because once it's great, when we have so many great testimonials, I think that's how we'll do that. Yeah, we haven't done a terrific job, and I think the B2C which is what we've been doing. Largely will be mostly a focus later, and at this point, our big push is into corporate. So we're working with companies like News Corp, where we teach their employees, and that's great. It allows us to really focus a little bit more and customize to them. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because they're instead of, most companies have environmental goals, so instead of handing them down to the employees and hoping that they'll come along for the ride, this is like getting people like connected personally in their own homes to their own lives, to bring themselves to work and then work on the environmental goals of the company. And then it's great from the healthcare costs and a travel costs and a team building, and it just makes a ton of sense. So our big push is corporate and doing a lot of that. And I think we'll circle back and do more B2C later on. And social is probably the big one, and just doing a bunch of press. When you got a quality product, it makes that easy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think all those testimonials, you know, all the people who've taken it and changed their behavior, and sharing that and making it easy for your learners to share that, right? Feels like a really big win. But huge kudos on News Corp. Like, that's a really big deal.
Thank you.
I can totally see why that's awesome. So I'm going to encourage people to, feel free to put questions in the Q&A. We'll save them for tonight and come to our clubhouse this evening. What I'm really interested in is, as you said, this is so early in the journey of Carbonauts, and quite frankly, in the journey of creator-led learning experiences, right? Like we're kind of, this is like 0.1 in my opinion, right? As we leave the industrial age and we sort of start building the infrastructure and the experiences. Tell me your highest hope and your biggest vision for what Carbonauts becomes in the next, 18, 24 months, maybe decade. How do you think about where you're going with it?
I mean, I've been lucky. I've sold a couple companies. I don't really have to do work too hard at anything. So this is mission driven for me. And I think we're confronting the biggest challenge that humanity has ever confronted. So it's all about action. And so my hope is to really build a movement. So we actually have our own private social network just for the Carbonauts. And I want to build that and really help bring more courses to all the Carbonauts, but also get them involved in protesting and getting out the vote and these sorts of things. And really hope that a bunch of them, a handful of them out of 50 people, each 50 attendees ends up being a real activist. And so, build a movement and get to 3, 4, 5% of the population, at which point corporations and the government really notice and society mobilizes. That's our big plan, is to basically develop a meaningful movement of people living in a new way to inspire the rest of society.
I'm so inspired, I guess, is what I would say. And I love what you say, which is it's not just about a course, right? It's completely not just about a course. Course is the entry point, into a learning community and a community of people who are really activated and connected and share something in common and that are all doing things in the world. And, one of the things I've learned is that like the highest honor as a teacher is having a learner who then becomes a teacher, right? It's like there's something so beautiful in that. And so I hear you saying that in many ways as like, how do we kind of create a feedback loop that creates more of what your purpose is?
Yes.
This has been amazing. We have 2 minutes left. And so I'm going to say for all the creators on the call, just like your 3 pieces of advice on them getting on their own journey of creating a mission-driven, creator-led learning experience. What's your top 3 pieces of advice?
I would say try to keep it short. I think an hour is good. I would say make it about them. I think that is the main thing. Make it about them, make it about them, make it about them. You want to ideally customize as much as possible. So, but people want to feel heard. And I think that's what's going to bring you the most success. So I'd almost make that number 2 and number 3. What else? I don't know, I guess practice and get as much feedback as you can, and understand there will always be haters, and you don't have to listen to all the feedback, but get a lot and really try to be intellectually honest with yourselves and just improve. I think the most important thing is just having the highest quality product you can, and your people will tell you. So make sure you listen to them.
I love that. Well, what a great way to end. We encourage feedback. This is our very first creator session, and we're so excited for Graham to be an early launch creator with us. And we can't wait to support you on your mission, because it's such an incredibly powerful mission. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. And we get to see you tonight. Come hang out on Clubhouse. If you don't have an invite, just tweet at me and I will give you one, and bring all your questions. This is a great start. Thanks, Graham. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Candace. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Ciao.